Good day, Internet. This is DTNS Live for Wednesday, April 16th, 2025. From Studio Animal House, I'm Sarah Lane.
In Studio 7 in Los Angeles, I'm Tom Merritt.
In Salt Lake City, Utah, I'm Scott Johnson.
And I'm the show's producer, Roger Chang.
Thank you, Utah, for losing to the St. Louis Blues yesterday. Yeah. Daily Tech News Show Live is made possible by its listeners. Thanks to all of you, including Paul Thiessen, Ali Sanjabi, AB Puppy, and Britt Thomas.
And welcome all of you to DTNS Live. If you're joining us for the first time, let's tell you all about it. This is the show where we discuss the tech news to help us all understand it a little bit better. And thanks to everybody who joins us live every day. And if you watch or listen after the fact, even better. Just good to have you. So, Scott, I'm sorry about Tom, upsetting you with some sports right off the top of the show.
Well, look, here's the deal. The Utah Hockey Club, ill-named Utah Hockey Club. We're about to get a real name, but for now it's the Utah Hockey Club until they get all the paperwork.
Wait, that's the name, Hockey Club?
For now it is, yeah. Very temporary, but I also think it's a curse. We're not winning. We're not beating anybody. So you can talk about the Blues. You can talk about what other teams we're playing. We're not doing great. I happen to live near the coach. He doesn't talk to people very much because I don't think he thinks he's going to be here very much longer.
I didn't know you lived near the coach. That's cool.
So near him, you'd be freaked out about how near. But I mean,
do you try to talk to him? And he's like, no, man.
Is he upstairs right now? That's
no. I'll say he's a neighbor. And the way we thought we could really neighbor our way into getting some kind of tickets or something, you know. But they ain't having it. They're very private. Don't want none of that. They're also from Quebec, and the French. You know how the French are. So,
they're Quebecois, not French.
Yeah.
Well, good point. You know how they get when I do
that. With that, and that might be why your neighbor isn't talking to you.
That could be why he doesn't speak to you, Scott. So you're French, huh? Don't talk to that man.
Yeah.
So we take bread. We do nice things when it's holidays. We do stuff, but it's
what kind of bread are you taking?
Just good bread. Good bread. French bread.
A little too much French toast.
You need to bring bagels.
He's like, okay,
Montreal style bagels. You'll be friends for life.
There you go.
Well, yeah. No, I actually like that it's called the Utah Hockey Club. I think that's amazing.
It's very old school, right? It's got a real, hey, Buster, let's go to the game.
It's descriptive.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah, but they're changing it. It's probably going to be the Yeti or the Grizzlies or whatever the other name is.
Yeti would be pretty cool, too.
Salt Lake City and Yetis are synonymous.
Sure. But we're glad to have a hockey team, and if I had to lose to anybody, I'm happy it's Tom's team, so it's fine. It's all good.
Well, and to be fair, the Blues needed to win to clinch the playoff spot. It really didn't matter to Utah whether it won or lost.
No, we weren't going anywhere either way. It was almost like, this is just practice. Enjoy St. Louis. And that's it.
Well, we are, sports always makes its way into the show here and there, but we do talk about tech news all day, every day. So let's start today with the quick hits.
The U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, a.k.a. CISA, has extended MITRE's contract by 11 months, avoiding disruption to the Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures, or CVE, program. MITRE had warned that funding would expire Wednesday. In response, members of the CVE board launched the CVE Foundation, which is a nonprofit they'd been planning that is aimed at ensuring the program's long-term independence. And the EU's ENISA introduced its own vulnerability database to support global coordination.
The Wall Street Journal sources say that Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg offered $450 million to settle the FTC's antitrust case out of court, which was well short of what the agency wanted, which was $30 billion. The case alleges that Meta used its Instagram and WhatsApp acquisitions to stifle competition. Meta reportedly increased its offer from that $450 million to $1 billion, but FTC Chair Andrew Ferguson declined the deal.
Yeah, and apparently the FTC came down to $18 billion. Like, they were on their way. They were sliding pieces of paper back and forth and all of that. But yeah, Ferguson put a stop to it. Oh, well, that's no fun. xAI's chatbot Grok now features Grok Studio, a workspace that lets you build documents, code, basic apps, all in a collaborative side-by-side view. The update also adds Google Drive integration, letting users attach and work with files like documents and spreadsheets directly in the chat.
Nvidia disclosed a $5.5 billion charge related to the suspension of H20 AI chip exports to China and other countries following new U.S. licensing rules. The restrictions are part of a wider AI export controls and have sparked concerns about Nvidia's future growth. Nvidia is obviously not alone here, but one of the bigger companies, particularly given China's importance to its business.
End of an era here. It doesn't really change much, but Google is retiring country-specific domain names for search, like google.co.uk. It will now just redirect everybody to google.com. So I guess they won't redirect anymore because most people would type in google.com and get redirected. The company claims its location detection is now accurate enough that it can just localize results. So if you're in the UK and you type google.com, it's going to give you UK-based search results, whether you put in the separate domain or not. It did say that generated summaries may still occasionally show results from the wrong region.
Oh, hallucination. Sarah, you're in Bali right now. No, I'm not.
Thank you.
Literally at home in my office.
I would take Sarah's place.
That would
and
be
in
fun.
Bali.
Yeah. OpenAI launched 2 new models, O3 and O4 Mini, both designed to improve reasoning and image-based problem solving. The company says O3 is its most advanced yet, and O4 Mini is offering strong performance at a lower cost. Both can now use all ChatGPT tools, including web browsing and image generation, and are available now for ChatGPT Plus and Pro users. TikTok is introducing Footnotes. This is a crowdsourced fact-checking tool that you might compare to something like X's Community Notes, which has been around for a while. So on TikTok, as a user, you can add context to a video without altering existing moderation rules. So, I might see a TikTok video and be like, that's not true. And here's how I know this. And that will apparently not affect the video's algorithmic ranking, won't affect its ability to appear on someone else's For You page, but will add context. TikTok says this relies on a ranking algorithm to find consensus among diverse opinions and is initially launching with a limited contributor program in the US, which you can voluntarily sign up for. I did. I'm waiting for them to let me on in. But let her in. Yeah, let me in because I'm on TikTok once a week. It's really important that
She'll use it more if you let her in. Just saying.
That's true. It's true. But yeah, I'm also back in the day when Community Notes launched, and I think it was still Twitter at the time, right? And that was something that was, do you want to be part of the Community Notes program? And I said yes, which allows me to not just look at the notes, but add notes, or thumbs up, down other people's notes. I don't know how much it matters, but it makes me feel better. It makes me feel like, hey, either I see something where it's disputed and I go, no, that's true, and here's the source. Or that's not true, and here's the source. Because in cases, both TikTok and X and Meta's doing this as well, it's you can't just be like, fake news. You have to, the whole idea is that you're saying, here's why this might have been worded wrong, and here's why. Now, your source could be bunk, of course, and then someone else is going to tell you, like, no, that source is bunk. So it's very Wikipedia-esque, really.
Yeah, I feel like this is a good thing overall. I think that there are questions about the accuracy of this sort of thing. The way X does it, I think, is pretty good. If you are the person on the receiving end trying to verify what you're seeing. Like in that way, I think it's effective because whether or not it's even 100% correct, usually it includes links and at least puts you on the right track to kind of find out for yourself if what you're seeing is real or if it's AI generated or if this has been debunked already or just as an outright lie. It's helpful for me as a user to see that and in a flash understand kind of where it's at or at least know there's some dispute. Whether or not it actually sways any sort of misinformation ebb and flow, I have my doubts. I don't think it does. I don't think X is any more honest about stuff or is dishonest than it ever was or as any other system. So as an end user, I see this as really valuable from the standpoint of maybe how you choose your next social media network and how much you engage with it. If you make it depend on how accurate it is, I don't think this is going to make that big of a difference. But it will help TikTokers like it helps X users and perhaps others. I know Threads has a thing going. They're testing anyway. And I hope Blue Sky does soon. But these kinds of things I think are good for end users. But but I don't think they change kind of the
They
which
don't
way the
change
wind
the fact
blows.
that people are going to misinform you.
No. But I personally, I love it. I'll see it and go, oh, okay, this makes sense. This is a thing I want to avoid or not look at anymore or not talk about or whatever. And that to me is very helpful. So
I have a question.
yeah.
This question is not only for us, but for everyone listening or watching. How many times have you seen one of these notes and realized you were wrong about something? How, in other words, how many times has this worked for you where you're like, oh, I almost got taken in, but now I have more context.
On
and
X?
I feel like I understand this now.
On X, this has happened to me before. And not necessarily like, oh, my opinion has like gone from one side to the other, but more of like, is this true? It's kind of like know your meme kind of stuff. It's like, did this happen?
You're like, I don't know if that's true or not. And then the community note was let you know whether it was true or not.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. How often do you think that's happened for you?
Oh, gosh.
I don't know, a handful of times.
Single digits.
It's got to be probably 5 or under, but somewhere in that range for me. I've been there have been a couple situations.
And
I don't really use X anymore.
Maybe
but
that's enough to make it worthwhile. I don't know. But I wonder how effective these things are. And I suspect that a lot of people like these plans. And I'm not saying that about you, Scott, or Sarah or Roger either. But I think a lot of people like these because they want it to work for other people, not for them.
That's a really good point.
Generally, people think like, well, I'll never get taken in, but we need to have this to stop those yokels from believing something that's wrong.
Yeah. I mean, you've actually hit. You're very close to the head of the nail, Tom. And what
Gosh, thanks.
Hold on, the community notes say that's a bad metaphor.
Oh no. What I've noticed is I actually pay more attention to a post if there are notes in a way, because that means it's there's something there for enough for people to comment on it. If not, I'll just kind of like shrug my shoulders. Maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. Not interested.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it, Roger? Somebody might put some blatant misinformation on a post, and because they're not a massive draw, they don't have a ton of followers, they're not a spotlight type user, no one's adding notes anyway. So that misinformation goes with or without notes. This isn't like this is going to affect every post that's wrong.
I don't think
notes aren't infallible either. I've at least one time saw a note where I'm like, no, the note's wrong. I know that.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah.
It's all
and
fallible.
people sometimes try to game.
Yeah.
The note
but
system type thing. TikTok also, I think TikTok is it's in a kind of unique position because sure, you think of X. Well, and Facebook.
Facebook has them,
yeah. Social platforms in general. There's plenty of news on social platforms. TikTok it just has rocketed to, such popularity in a small amount of time. And people who don't hang out on TikTok much are like, don't people just dance and, talk, while they're driving and, that sort of stuff, put makeup on. And so it's like, yeah, you have all that.
They
you
dance
don't really
while
need
driving and putting
notes for
makeup
things like
on.
that.
It's all the safe stuff you do.
And talk about the debt ceiling.
I was watching a TikTok earlier, and it was about somebody who took issue with the all-woman Blue Origin. Space 11 minutes.
I've heard
space
some
flight.
people criticize it for being wasteful, like too much money spent, all that.
And whether or not I agree with her, I was like, she's just, I don't know, spouting off her opinion. There's not really a note to give. You can't just be like, no, you're wrong. It's like, well, no, I just was talking about how I feel about it. But if she were to say like, Blue Origin is, funded by Martians. It's like, well, maybe we need a community note for this.
Yeah, to let us know that is in fact true.
Yeah. It's interesting though, right? Because we all want more, in today's modern internet, we want more and more safeguards to tell us if something's worth even looking at, if it's true or not. Some people just see the thing that aligns with whatever they're thinking and they think, well, great, and that just supports my thinking.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't matter if there's a community note then.
Nope.
I've run into this, not even in political stuff, where something is questionable, but the person wants to believe it so much that they get angry if you point out, like, who's saying that? Is that a reliable source? Like, shut up. I just want it to be true. You know?
Well,
and I think community notes aren't very good at combating that.
There's a deeper psychology here that I don't think this addresses. But, if the whole idea for TikTok to do this is to have people on the platform longer because they feel comfortable about the stuff they see.
Yeah,
Then
could
it's
be.
I mean, that's all they're doing. I don't think TikTok really cares about the veracity of the information. They just want people to feel comfortable on the platform. And if this is like the velour couch in the front that makes people sink in and not leave the store, yeah.
Well, and someone like me who's like, I want to be part of Footnotes. I mean, am I going to be on TikTok all day, every day, just because I can be like, footnote? Maybe not, but it'll probably keep me there longer every time I do check my For You page.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
if you went
we should note it has nothing to do with feet.
Yeah. No,
I
yeah.
mean, it will.
I mean, it could, but
If I'm like, these are my feet, and Tom's like, they're absolutely not. Those are my feet.
Not Sarah's feet.
Then maybe it would be a footnote.
Those are Sasquatch feet.
you have there are too many toes for those to be some of my feet.
Those are Otis's feet. I could tell.
yes. You have dog feet? No, they're mine. I'm positive. Footnote. All right, so let's talk about motion sickness. Now, this is actually potentially good news for those of you who are like, I hate being motion sick. Simple solution might be on the way that some people can play in their headphones, right, Tom?
Yeah. You could go on a car ride and read after this, possibly. If you don't already know this, those of you who are motion sick probably already know this, but if motion sickness is caused by a mismatch between the movement sensed by your inner ear and the movement from your other senses, right? There's a mismatch with how it perceives things are moving, and that's what causes you to feel nausea and all of that. Scientists led by Takumi Kagawa and Masashi Kato at Nagoya University in Japan researched the idea that sound stimulating the inner ear could reduce the mismatch. You stimulate the organ in the ear for balance, and you can reduce the mismatch. There's been some work done indicating that that might be true. So they were like, let's find a frequency that does that. And they did. A frequency of 100 hertz at a loudness of 60.9 to 65.9 A-weighted decibels, which is not very loud, worked the best. They have trademarked it. So they trademarked this sound as Sound Spice in their studies. Yeah, we'll get to that. Like, I'm not sure why. But anyway, in their studies, mice who listened to this tone for 5 minutes exhibited less motion sickness for more than 2 hours after they heard it. So it was a nice, long-lasting ferry ride length effect. And humans who listened to it for 1 minute had a similar effect. It was mostly done studying things like being in a swing, being in a driving simulator, going for an actual ride in a car. So if your motion sickness is different than that, it may or may not work for that. We don't know. But they tested it on that kind of motion sickness. So specifically, if you get car sick, this could work for you.
Yeah, I don't really get car sick, but my sister does real bad, and nothing works for her. She's tried everything from every.
Do you want to hear the tone?
I do actually. It's not a brown
I'm not
note,
going
right?
to
I
play
gotta warn
it for
everybody.
a whole minute, but
Okay.
it's not very loud. So I went to
If you're car sick right now, just imagine
just
it goes
sit back.
longer.
Pull over. Just pull over.
Yeah, let's do-
Shinalski.com has an online tone generator that apparently a lot of folks use. So you set it to 100 hertz and a sine wave, and this is the tone. It's like kind of just a hum.
kind of like it.
Yeah.
It's chilling me out.
It's not damaging or annoying or anything like that, but just 1 minute of this.
You know, I feel a little better. Just kidding. I wasn't nauseous to start with.
Yeah, I was
but-
about to barf. Now I'm fine.
Listening to this on Daily Tech News Show may not have the intended effect.
Yeah, I mean, we know that certain people are going to be sensitive to certain sound waves, certain bass levels, that kind of stuff. I mean, I know I am. There's a certain happy space for me when it comes to like bass and like space simulation. This kind of thing is what I listen to at night. Chills me out. Not everybody's going to be the same. The real question is, clinically, can somebody with moderate to severe motion sickness, can they get on a plane, put this in their ears, never take Dramamine again, no more patches, just listen to this tone for half an hour? I mean, that would be
boats
amazing.
for me. So I want them to do a study which frequency works for seasickness, because that's what I have experienced. I'm fine in cars, not so great in helicopters, honestly, but I'm fine in planes.
How often are you in helicopters?
I mean, only a couple times in my life, but
But you
both
felt sick.
times it was touch and go, but I never puked.
Yeah.
Good.
A lot
You
of
know,
looking
Tom.
at the horizon. Everybody else was having fun looking at the lava from the volcano on Hawaii, but I was looking at the horizon.
Oh
straight.
yeah, it's funny. I wonder if anybody else has had this experience. Back in the day, I got car sick really easily. If I was in the back seat and it was a windy road, I'm not losing my cookies, but I feel awful, and I feel awful for like a whole hour after I get out of the car. You know, it's just no fun. Do not even talk about reading. I can't even read a sign on the side of the road that says
Because
San
that's the
Francisco
mismatch,
150 miles from now.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
like no. It used to be really bad somehow, and I think this has to do with just smartphones being just something that we all have and we're using all the time. I can read in the car now. It just kind of happened. It's
Question
like
for
my
you,
body
Sarah.
just trained itself.
I remember one of the places you lived in the past had a big transformer outside of your window. Did it sound like this? Maybe it just you listened to it long enough. It just like cured your.
And I just healed myself. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm still not going to be like super happy if I'm in a cramped back seat going through a windy road, but I can read. It
it's
doesn't
better
matter
now.
to me anymore. But it used to be a really big deal. So I'm not saying like, just get over it, people. It's really debilitating for a
Yes.
lot of folks.
It depends, because I still get back in the back seat of a cab, depending on the
Interesting.
type of car.
So
right?
it's the back seat, not the front seat, that causes
Not the
it.
front. The front seat
Yeah.
I'm okay, but the back seat, my daughter's like this too. And certain,
Yeah.
like when she's sitting in the Forerunner, she doesn't have a problem, but when she sits in the Camry, she has a problem. And I'm wondering, because there's lower to the ground, but also because when you sit in the back seat of the Camry, the door sills are up higher, so it's harder for her to like look out. So you don't have the ability to look at a reference point.
Because when you're doing the look at the horizon or not reading, you're trying to reduce the mismatch between the motions, right? That's why it works. But this apparently stimulates the otolithic organs in the inner ear, which detect linear acceleration and gravity. And I didn't read enough into the paper to understand why that could do it, but that can do it. And they found the right frequency to stimulate those organs and cause like a 2+ hour effect on this. Again, the humans in the study were subjected to a swing, a driving simulator, and an actual car. And then not only were they asked about their motion sickness with a standard questionnaire, but they did electrocardiography and post-urography analysis. So they could see the actual physical effects that motion sickness has and tell whether they were there or not. And the control group got motion sick much more often than the people that listened to the tone.
So I have a question directed at Scott. So I know back in like the 2010s, around that area, everyone was complaining about field of view on first-person shooters, especially games that were developed for the console and meant to be played on the couch versus when they got adapted to the PC. People complain, I get motion sick. And now games have a field of view that allow you to change that. So actually, in some cases, I used to get that way, where it just felt like a little move would move the screen too much, and I would get super sick. And it turned out it's just like there's too much motion.
Some people still get
acceleration
motion sick, even with those settings change.
Yeah, some of it is also stuff they can't see. Refresh rate has a huge effect on some people. Some people don't. But the kind of refresh rate, how it matches with the video card. But these days, we're going to talk a lot more about game accessibility here in a minute. Different story, but this is all part of that. These days, the technology is there to say, how does the same person do with 120 frames per second or 120 hertz refresh rate on a screen that is OLED instead of LED? That may be enough to change it. Like Roger's saying, point of view, being able to expand that or lower that or have a wider view angle will help some people and not others. Some people, they'll start getting sick because you change the FOV. So it's a weird, like, you have to dial in what works best for you sort of thing. For the most part, most people are fine with all these default sort of settings, but there are always going to be these outliers that just react differently. And I don't know if there was a way for those people. You get sick on planes, you just feel it because you get a little vertigo here and there. If you could just turn on a tone and have that consistently be a way to center it all, That's really
Or
amazing.
even just to minimize. Maybe you don't feel 100%, but just to minimize.
Yeah,
it.
just take the edge off. My sister would love this if it works. So I'm tempted to. Well, I'm not. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna.
Yeah, send her this and tell her to try it out. I'd be curious if it works.
Just put it in the back seat of her car, and she can't just.
Because the poor thing, she everywhere she goes, planes, boats, and she travels a lot. She's
You
just
should,
always
you should
sick.
do what the mice had to do in the test. She listens to the tone and then it has to walk a balance beam and then reports back.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't mention that part of it. They did it with mice first to see if there was any effect before they did it on humans. They had them walk balance beams, which I was like, I want to see video of that.
I love it. Yeah, that'd be great.
Anyway, here we go.
See, it chills me out. I don't know what it's supposed to do, but I like it.
If you
like a
try
white noise
this and you were like, that worked, please let us know. There's a lot of ways to get in touch with us, including on social networks. We are at DTNS Show on X, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Mastodon at DTNS Show. Or you can find us at Daily Tech News Show on TikTok and YouTube.
Ubisoft has recently offered developer tools to make it easier for game devs to target accessibility. Accessibility is something that we always like to highlight here on DTNS Live. So, Scott, what's the latest?
All right, so here's the deal. This kind of thing is all the rage right now. Everybody's trying to make games and stuff more easy for more people to get into. Accessibility, literally the definition of making the games more accessible. So they launched this tool called Chroma. It is something they've been using internally, and now they're making it open source. It adds colorblind filters to game content, and it's very much geared as a tool for devs themselves. So if you're a small developer, a large developer, everything in between, this is a tool that's out there. It's not that this isn't already being done by various groups and so on, but they have thought enough about this to say, we're not keeping this to ourselves. This is kind of for everybody. And to be honest, it's nice to read something good about Ubisoft. They're having good sales on Assassin's Creed, and they're doing this. So a couple of good things in the last year. Never hurt anybody. But this particular tool attacks the most common and probably the most egregious forms, if you want to use that word, of color blindness. And it has no dependency on any particular engine. So they don't need this for their engine or the Unreal Engine or Unity. Any of these engines can use it. It's engine agnostic. And that means it should work across just about every game that anyone's developing. Ubisoft's director of accessibility, David Terrasan, stated this, quote, "We invite everyone to benefit from it, provide feedback, and contribute to its future development." Kind of your standard open sourceness of things. So it includes the following: real-time color blindness filters, and this adds this to in-game context in real time for accessibility testing. So this is not only useful for your final product and having a setting in the menu that maybe people can fiddle with for their particular brand of blindness or sight impairment, but in testing, you can see whether some of this stuff is like drastically affecting gameplay or pacing. There's all these things to consider, and they've really geared it toward the test environment, which I think is really smart. Supports all the major color blindness types. I can't say these words because I'll mess them up, but there are three that if you have color blindness, you probably know what these words are. We'll call them the S, the P, and the D, and the T. Also, there's no performance impact. The idea of this tool is to make it so that you are not going to have to factor in an impact to your game that will require
won't
higher...
slow it down or anything.
Exactly.
That's cool. Yeah.
You're not going to have to say minimum specs now require more RAM because we've included this tool, which is sometimes true of certain tools when you include them. DRM and other stuff sometimes cause a hit to that sort of thing.
Yeah.
This will not, according to them. Like I mentioned, fully open source. It's very developer focused, built with expert input. They say it's developed with accessibility, expert collaboration, and user feedback. All of that can be tested out, I suppose. And they have this all as part of their goal. They call it their inclusive design goal, aims to make color blindness accessibility a standard part of game development. And it could go a long way to doing that. Their quality control Indian team developed the tool and announced it this week at the Game Accessibility Conference. This is the same place you saw Microsoft announce their what seems like an insane controller, but used for accessibility reasons. A lot more stuff coming out of those these days. I think that this is good in a couple of ways. It's obviously good for developers who are trying to integrate this stuff into their games without impacting budget or how small their team is, or like we said earlier, performance on their game or their engine. They can just put it into their games regardless of the game and engine, and I think that's really, really good. So the accessibility for them is good for them as developers. It's good for players who suffer from various forms of colorblindness to be able to adjust the game, to be able to still play it. And this directly benefits Ubisoft and other big publishers and developers because they will sell more games because more people can play them. That's what accessibility does for them. That's why it's smart business, along with just kind of the right thing to do. For those who can't do what everybody else can do, this is a chance for them to actually sell more of a product. Everybody wins. It's sort of considered a triple win. And it'll help with their bottom line. Sharing tools like this means smaller devs and teams have more quickly and accessible features. That, to me, is the number one thing because indie is such a big thing right now. Small teams of 5 guys in a basement, 1 guy in an office. These are not uncommon, and it'd be nice to see more of this in those games as well. They've got other stuff. They introduced a text-to-speech tool. They open source that as well. Other examples around that industry would include Microsoft and their accessibility guidelines and game accessibility feature tags. That's a pretty interesting development. It's mostly trying to establish some standards. They call them the ZAGs, XAG. But basically, it's a comprehensive resource for developers to understand how to implement accessibility features. This could be one of those. And then another one to mention is EA has a patent pledge, they call it, on accessibility technologies. And here's what they did. In 2021, they made a patent pledge offering free access to several of their patented accessibility technologies. And that includes things like their ping system in Apex Legends. That's patented, but anybody can do it. That's actually a big deal. EA is the kind of company in the past you would think would hoard this stuff and not let it out because it is also very gameplay oriented. But anyway, these are all good measures. They're all going to contribute to 2 things. More people can play your games. Games as a business will not stall out as much on just, normative people, for lack of a better term. And thirdly, these companies will sell more copies of their games to more people the more they include here. So I personally applaud the entire thing. I think it's great.
Yeah, I would like to just throw in there because I know there's 2 of you wondering. These are actual open source licenses, Apache 2.0 to be specific, from Ubisoft. Mm-hmm. We've had so many like, it's open source. Well, it's actually proprietary with a permissive license for non-commercial use. That's not what's going on here. Like, this is legitimately open source for anybody to use, modify, and redistribute. That's
right. So what I think will probably happen, like it often does, is we'll end up with some forks on this for specific use cases. So you're going to have experiences in VR that depend on visual information and how light and color work within that spectrum that are going to be different than a 2D screen experience. And as a result, they're going to want to make that maybe even more specialized. And so you'll see that happen. That's a good thing. It will remain open sourced. These are good steps in the right direction. I have a lot of friends who suffer from some form of color blindness, and it really is this simple. Like back in the day, if they wanted to play Halo, the first Halo, the way that those multiplayer matches worked out is you would be red versus blue. And I had a friend who couldn't see blue. It just wasn't a color to him. It was like a weird monochromatic thing that didn't look like anything else. Red didn't look right either. So when people would say, there's a dude over here hiding or whatever, and if you had friendly fire on, you were killing your own players because you couldn't really tell what color he was. And he spent a lot of time just sort of faking his way through it. He felt embarrassed by it. He didn't want to tell his friends how he was playing. This happened during his time with Counter-Strike, really into big competitive shooters and stuff. And these are the places we're going to start to see these. I know there's some concerns in the community that they can go too far with some of these features. They can be gained and turned into hackable situations, so that some maybe gain an advantage in the game and use it for nefarious purposes. But here's the beauty of this. This thing was not made for end clients to like side install into their game. This will be integrated into the final builds of games, into their compiled games. It will be, like we said, very focused on the testing process so that the devs can really give it a workout given their exact context and the kind of game they're making and see how it behaves with this stuff before it ever touches the controller of somebody outside. So I think it's just the right thing to do, and to see big companies like Ubisoft, who I can't say this enough, they needed a win. This is a win in my opinion as of late. They've got their own issues, their own problems, but I think this is a really, really nice step in the right direction. And overall, the industry is generally has stepped up in the last few years, especially the big boys. they kind of set the tone and create the leadership, and it means it's easier to see it trickle down to, Unity and Godot and some of these various smaller engines and these smaller efforts. So so this is really good, and the fact that this scales so well from tiny product to something huge, AAA down to indie one guy is massive. So I think it's a great step.
Yeah, and color blindness often is overlooked.
I agree.
Because it's not perceived to be as serious by some people, and so it's good to see it getting this kind of development too.
Yeah, and this should make it easier and make it more of an afterthought. It's just part of your dev now, and you don't have to do a bunch of hoops. It's just in there, and we're now they're good.
Right, like you don't have to have the developer who really cares deeply.
Not really, no.
If you're a developer who really cares deeply, that's great.
Yeah.
But even if you're not, you've got tools.
Yeah,
to make it easy.
And they're not ridiculous or expensive, or someone's trying to make a buck here. This is really
or time consuming. Even sometimes, especially if people overlook the fact that game development does take a lot of time, and anything that shortens it does help reduce the amount that they have to pay in.
Yep.
Indeed. Well, keeping on the subject of games, Microsoft Phil Spencer had a rather lengthy chat with Variety. Roger, you read the chat. What did you take away from it?
Phil Spencer likes to talk to Variety for a very lengthy time. But they touched on a number of subjects, including the upcoming Microsoft game lineup, the Switch 2 launch, and Microsoft's notable absence, as well as their competitors, namely Sony and the PlayStation. But the bulk of the interview was kind of focused around a Minecraft movie, which is the big kind of video game IP on the silver screen currently, and it's doing pretty well at the box office. And the possibility of other game IPs within Microsoft's library that could make the leap over onto either streaming TV or the cinema. And a lot of points were made regarding, for example, Super Mario Brothers, The Last of Us on HBO, as examples of games that did very well as adaptations, but also other games like Halo and Borderlands, which did not do as well. So my broader question to all of you is, what properties do you think would kind of do well, and how would you judge the success? For example, a Minecraft movie, really good box office generator. However, from a critical review, it was kind of like, it's a game about not a game. It's a movie about a popular video game that a lot of people have played and understand. But as a narrative, as a story, it kind of falls flat. Is it enough just to have those bits of a game on screen for it to generate interest, or do you think you need something more, like something deeper? Where something like The Last of Us is a very deep narrative that people who either don't play video games or aren't familiar with that particular video game can kind of hook into.
Well, The Last of Us is an interesting case because it's so heavily narrative that it's almost a show in game form. You know what I mean? Like they already kind of had. They kind of had the art form built into the game.
They storyboarded it already.
Yeah, that's already a story-driven experience, and so moving it to the smaller screen, to regular TVs, and having people in a more passive experience was kind of an easy take. But there's an important thing I'd like to mention about that show. In a recent interview, Craig Mazin, the show creator of the show and runner of the show, you know him from the Chernobyl miniseries, fantastic stuff. This guy has had his hands in. Him and Neil Druckmann are technically creators, Druckmann from the game studio. And he said in an interview that one of the rules they have on set is everybody and I don't know how close they adhere to this, just a comment and a thing, but everybody from makeup all the way up through head production all play the game or are gamers in general. And the idea is that when you do that, you instill in everybody a sense of you already know how this stuff is going to translate. So just translate it. You don't have to come up with new ideas. I'll give you the contrast to be Borderlands, for example. Not a lot of gamers over there in that production team. I can't really speak to Eli Roth. He might play. It's probably what got him interested in it, the director. But everybody else, including the actors, just kind of like, whatever. It's just, it's a role to play. And they had to kind of build a story around it that isn't even in the games, that isn't play to the game's strength or the world's strength in the game. They just tried to make it something else. I would argue this is the same method that they used to make that first Super Mario Brothers movie in 91 or 92, whatever it was, and it flopped horribly, and for a good reason. They weren't true to the source material, and nobody working on it cared about the source material. They were trying to make something for someone else. So today we have great examples of that turnaround. The Super Mario Brothers movie that exists now, the new animated one, 100% knows where it's coming from and what it needs to represent. And it does, and it did it really well and was popular, made a lot of money, was critically okay, and audiences loved it. Minecraft's a weird one, though, because you're taking a world full of squared off, low poly, pixelated content.
With no real narrative.
Not really. You're basically just in a sandbox. There's references and memes and all of that, and we've seen some of that play out.
But I bet producers love that because they're like, we can go anywhere with this.
I think so. I think that they...
yes, they can, but they have to be fans. Because that's what made a Minecraft movie work, was the fans were like, I know this is a BS story, but I don't care because they're giving me all the fun things that I expect to see.
What would happen inside Minecraft.
It's funny because Len Peralta mentioned this like last year. Like world building is very important, and if you don't build the world, or if it has cracks or it has edges to it, their similitude, the whole believability of the audience just kind of goes out the window. I came to see Super Mario Brothers, and I see, I see a weird movie about little dinosaurs, being walked around like dogs, and a weird John Leguizamo as Luigi, and it's just like nothing works, right? You just see names of popular things on other things that don't seem to be associated with it.
Because of what Scott was saying, because they weren't fans. They would be like, why don't we have Mario dress in blue? It'll look better. And fans would be like, you can't do that, right? And maybe
like
Nintendo
Brad
would
Pitt
stop
can't
them
be Mario.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way. That's
apparently Chris Pratt can, though, which I was a little skeptical about, but okay.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Brad Pitt might.
And my kids sort of kind of glommed in for half the movie and sort of left the other half because they never played it, but they know all the Super Mario iconography, all the characters, all the elements in the game, even though they've never played it, because it's such an overwhelming cultural, tour de force at this point. Yeah. But I think there is a lot to mine because Hollywood studios are very, very hungry for IPs, not that are new, but also unspoken for, right? Disney owns Marvel. You're not picking up a Marvel IP anytime soon if you're another studio that isn't Disney. And so that is a potential wellspring. But as we saw with the Halo TV series, you really have to kind of execute it in a way that plays to its strengths.
I was going to give you an example. Since this is a Microsoft story and the Phil Spencer aspect of it, he's got some wins under his belt and he's got some losses. And Halo should not be one of those losses. They blew that thing. It should have been better. It could have been better, and part of the reason, or most of the reason it didn't work, is because they didn't pay attention to the source material. They decided to go in places where they're like, well, this games don't really do this, but maybe we could do this. And it's like, hold on, rein it in. You
can get away with that if you make a good enough story. The other problem was it wasn't a good enough story, right? Like
fair point.
I look at this and I think about books. We have a long history of adapting books into movies and TV shows. Game of Thrones, great example in the first season anyway. Let's so focus on that, of following the source material in ways that I didn't even think they could. They were so close to that original book and showing what happened in the original book. I was blown away. And they did it well enough that other people who hadn't read the book loved it too. Blade Runner is an example of the opposite. They totally changed everything from the source material. And even people who knew the source material, the Philip K. Dick book, were like, that's still a really fun movie. That's a really good movie. It's a different movie and a different story.
Creative
but it's really
license, it worked.
Exactly. So to me, it's less about the source material and can you make a video game into a movie? It's more about how do you make a good movie using a video game as the source material? And there are multiple ways of doing it. You can go the fan service way with a Minecraft movie. You can go the literal way like The Last of Us, or you can go a total departure from something and make a really good movie. It's just a matter of, can you make it into a really good movie?
Yeah, I think that's true. I would point to to Fallout as another great example of this. Also, it may seem that the best stuff is on TV. There's a point to be made about that a procedural, processed, multiple episode type approach is going to be better for games that are often 100 hours long and have enough content in them that you could really pull from them and make something interesting in your narrative. So I think The Last of Us would have been a lousy movie, great TV show. I think Fallout, lousy movie, great TV show. I think that these do
also,
lend
it
themselves
depends on
better.
who works on it too.
Yeah,
right?
oh yeah,
like,
for sure.
Do they either understand the source material, like in Last of Us, or do they have a clear vision of how to take that source material and make it into something better or different and also good, like Blade Runner?
I will say The Last of Us, the season 2, episode 1 premiered on Sunday. I will not spoil it for anybody. But if anyone watched the first season, I feel like they are doubling down on this is video game material. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's like you've got, some like heavy dialogue scenes. You've got some non-playable characters. And then you have a lot of action stuff where it's like, yeah, this feels video game-esque. I don't remember feeling that way throughout season 1. And somebody tell me if I'm crazy, but it feels like they're really catering to that audience who's like, yes, I know this story. And I want it to feel like that story.
And one of the things about at least in the game is that the whole action sequence you play is actually there to make things more tense, because now you're in control between the cutscenes of making the character execute on their plan successfully while kind of navigating all these hazards, whether they be zombies or other people or natural, pitfalls. And, that's the whole experiential thing about it. And I think what Tom and Scott have been saying is true. It's like you don't have just one type of adaptation, but you really do need to care about the narrative, where you're going and where you want the audience to be. Because if you sort of just want to make a quick cash grab and you just slap a name of something that's already popular onto a movie that has nothing to do narratively or look and feel to it, then people aren't going to know that something's up.
Yeah.
And honestly, none of the creatives ever do that. It's the producers that make that happen. When you talk about like they just was a quick cash grab, it's because the executive producers didn't fund it properly and didn't guide it properly. The directors, the writers, they're all doing the best with what they're given, but sometimes they just aren't given the resources.
Yeah. I think we're in a great place right now, though, and I think it's only going to get better. So,
I mean, I definitely feel we're transitioning away from that whole kind of comic superhero vibe into like, hey, there's a new well of IP we can plunder, and it's video
And it's
games.
called Webtoons. Well, sorry.
There you go.
Or the mailbag.
Ooh. Yes, we forgot to tell you, when you email us, we do get the rights to option your email into an adapted movie in the future. So just, make sure you understand that. Hutch says, while I like the protective features while using a case, we still got people talking about whether they should use it a case or not. I have large hands. And I've liked using a case that makes even the iPhone series iPhones larger, the iPhone Pro series iPhones larger. We also got a follow-up from Anon Jr. because we were speculating, okay, so if you all have cases that are different colors because you all have the same phone, do you fight about the colors? Anon Jr. said, fortunately, there's no argument about case colors. I usually end up with orange since it matches my logo. My sister usually gets red, so it stands out. She loses track of her phone more often than anyone I've ever seen. And my brother-in-law, I don't remember.
Yeah, just not orange or red.
Yeah, but it's apparently
that
not
other
orange or
one.
red.
And some of us are running around naked, throwing this around without any case at all.
Hide your shame, Scott Johnson.
I mean, it's weird because phone companies, Apple, Samsung, that they come to immediately to mind, spend a lot of time, money, and effort to kind of get those cases in a very attractive, or not cases, get the phone shapes and designs into a very attractive look, feel, and then you go on and throw a $20, $10 case on it and just hide it.
Yeah, that was the conversation we had that people are reacting to.
We also got a good one from Jason, who wrote in on Monday's show. Justin, Robert Young, was talking about people using AI chatbots for therapy. Jason says, back in 1982, I had a roommate who was going through a tough time. We were both visiting computer science students, so we didn't have as many close social connections. And on top of that, his girlfriend had broken up with him. Being the early 80s, we also had hard copy terminals. The CS department had a copy of Eliza. I was trying to get it to say funny things, but I could see his transcripts where he was talking about his ex now dating somebody that he knew. So for anybody being like, AI, as like a friend and perhaps therapy, been going on for quite some time.
I had a copy of Eliza, like an adapted version of Eliza on my Commodore 64 that I used to play with. There's also a version from the New Jersey Institute of Technology that you can actually you can actually use. The prompt of Eliza starts with, "Hello, I am Eliza. I'll be your therapist today."
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so for anybody, because I was not familiar with this, I looked it up. Eliza, computer program created by Joseph Weizenbaum in 1966, designed to simulate human conversation and mimic a psychotherapist, using pattern matching and substitution techniques to generate responses based on your input. And in creating the illusion, really, that's all it was, of understanding and also empathy.
It does not work nearly as convincingly as ChatGPT. You can make it break pretty fast, but for the purposes of therapy, it was pretty good because it did that sort of limited thing that some styles of therapy do, which is tell me more about that. And how did that make you feel? Like it was able to tell enough about what you were saying to respond with something that would make sense in a very limited fashion. And I could see where, like, even if that's what it's doing, that could work.
Yeah.
And a lot of, I'm not going to speak to everyone's, psychotherapy sessions, but a lot of that is just like helping the person be able to articulate how they feel. It's not so much that you've got a solution for them. It just feels good to get it out, to be able to explain, like, tell me more about that.
Therapy is talking. And in that respect, ChatGPT can be just as good as Eliza in that. That's really cool. Jason, good memory on that one.
Indeed.
Yeah, I remember in the 90s, there were like a handful of very similar products that they used to sell. And they were all like Eliza. They weren't web connected or anything, but they were all there to like therapy session on a CD or CD-ROM. And
wasn't there one with like a picture of a couch and a psychiatrist and stuff on the box? That I have a vague recollection of that now that you say that.
I just remember we covered one of these on Call for Help a long time ago, and I do not remember the name of it. But I've always been fascinated because it's one of those things that, computers are great because they're not going to tell anyone what you just told. Well, ideally, they don't tell. People don't find out what you've been telling.
Well, now they're training
that's the
on
rub, isn't it? Yeah. Are they storing that data in the cloud?
people used to tell me things because I didn't know any of their friends, and so they could feel safe.
And then you would go and sell that to third parties for advertising.
No,
it was just
Why did you do that, Roger?
I made novellas, and I changed all the names, and I said, based on real stories.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
My friend, Roger... Not me.
Sarah novella by Roger Changa.
Nailed it.
True stories from The Office.
Well, thanks to Hutch and Jason both for writing in, and thanks to everybody who writes in with questions, comments, great anecdotes, fun memories, all the things. Please keep them coming. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. Also, Scott Johnson, you better keep coming back to the show or we're going to have issues, okay?
We're going to have words.
We're going to have words and we're going to have, fisticles. But,
That's right.
But wow.
I made that up. What is that even?
I don't even know.
I know what a listicle is, but yeah.
Short bulleted fist.
There you go.
Yes, just so many, a lot of page views. Scott, let us know what you're up to when you're not with us.
Well, on Thursdays, I do a show called Core with a couple of co-hosts, and it's the larger issues and things happening around the video game industry as a show. It's a long one, too. We do sometimes 3.5 hours, usually shorter than that. But if you want to catch it live or check the podcast out, we talk about this week things like the new Marathon game coming. There is apparently an Oblivion remake coming out next week, kind of stealth releasing it. Got leaked today. PlayStation 5 is getting more expensive in some regions. What's going to happen? Well, if you tune into Core, you might find out. That is frogpants.com/core or wherever you get your shows.
Indeed. We have literally hundreds of people technically hundreds of people watching us live, and they get the fun of being able to submit a title at showbot.tv. You just go to dtns.showbot.tv. You can submit them in the Discord and the Twitch chat as well, or just submit them directly. And when you submit them directly, you can vote on each other's titles. Fred819 in a hot race with Zoe Brings Bacon for the vote winner of our title. Fred has We're All Footnotes. And then Zoe has What Does Gaming Accessibility Look Like? It's the vision-oriented thing.
I like that. It's good.
G. James B. wonders, why am I a footnote in the memoir that I wrote? Wow. We also have Pitfall from
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
PITT, like Brad.
Badfinks, and now on Drive Time, this is the frequency, Kenneth. I mean, that's just, I don't know. Not everybody's going to get that, but hats off. That's a good one.
I mean, it's very rare you get a Dan Rather and REM.
It should be Kenneth : this is the frequency. Kenneth answering, like, nice. Dan, rather, this is the frequency.
Yes, yeah. You asked, and this
Kenneth
is the
finally
frequency.
Responds.
Right, yeah. Like, we've been asking Kenneth for decades now, what is the frequency? People are sick out here.
REM had a whole hit, just wondering. G. James B. wrote TikTok toes.
Oh, that's cute.
Get it?
TikTok toes is pretty good. I like that one. Fun to say.
Sarah, what did we go with?
Well, we got a lot of good submissions today. It was a tough one, but we did go with Fred819's We're All Footnotes.
We're all footnotes. It's good to remember.
Yep. Just dust on the wind, footnotes.
Yeah.
You know,
we're all just things
idea.
I wrote on my foot, so I won't forget.
Right. Yeah, I have so many notes on my foot right now. It's just, I mean, it's a great way to, keep track of your life.
It's great in the summer when I'm not wearing socks. It's a little harder to consult.
Otherwise, you're like, oh man, there's a note in there somewhere, but I don't know.
Hold on, I need to.
Can I take my shoes off here?
Yeah.
I need to look at my footnote.
That's why you end up going to eat at certain Asian restaurants, because they let you take your shoes off. Or
Yeah,
they make you take your shoes
it's
off.
fine. Yeah, we prefer it, in fact.
Now I can look at my notes while I eat. Ma'am, please leave the socks on.
Ma'am, that's enough. The ink. Oh,
It's not the. Oh, yeah.
Excuse me, waiter, can I be seated at a different table?
Excuse me, waiter. Can I be seated at a different restaurant?
My footnote was in pencil. It didn't even stick. I can't read it.
Sweat it off. No.
Crap.
Classy.
Yeah. Well, big thanks to everybody who supports the show in all the various ways. We got a super sticker moments ago. 7 minutes ago from Laminar Rainbow.
Yay.
Always good with the super stickers. Thank you, Laminar Rainbow.
Indeed.
Thank you, everybody watching us on LinkedIn. Thank you, everybody watching us on Twitch. Zoe Brings Bacon gave us 4 bits. Paley Glendale gave out a community subscription gift. Build a Builder followed us as well. Big thanks to all the folks supporting us there. Thanks to the folks watching us on YouTube, like Laminar Rainbow. And just thank you for being you and supporting us at patreon.com/DTNS as well.
Indeed. If you're looking for, I don't know, an Easter gift, maybe you've got a friend who has a birthday coming up, a really great way to get somebody something that they might really like is dailytechnewsshow.com/store. We've got a mug, we've got a t-shirt, we've got a mouse pad, we've got our new DTNS Live logo, which we're all very fond of, and it would be great for you to be able to support us this way, if that makes sense to you. And if you are so inclined, we'd love to see pictures of anybody out there in the wild with something from our store. It would make our day. So do it,
Get in there.
please.
Please.
It's
and
just a
send us
request.
Yeah.
You can watch us live Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern. That is 2000 UTC. And find out more about that at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. We do this live Monday through Friday, so we'll be back tomorrow doing it all again. Talk to you then.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.